Okay, we just finished up with multiples of 10. So the next ones that we get to are numbers that percents that end in 5. So I'm thinking about 5, 15, 35, 45, 55, 65, 85, and 95. Again, I didn't include 25 and 75 in this list because if it's 25 or 75% that we're trying to find, it'd be a lot more efficient to use this option than to draw out this option. So when you are doing percents that end in 5, you want to use a 20 grid so that each of the boxes represent 5%. And I would draw that quickly by just doing 2 big bars and then cutting those bars into 10. So it's a 2 by 10 grid. So again, if I were going to draw this, I would draw these big boxes here, and then I'd go back and just draw the lines down through them so that I had my 20 boxes. And then each of these boxes would represent 5%. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, etc. If a number ends in any other number besides 5 or 0, we need to use the hundreds grid. So if you had to find 12% or 27%, 39%, etc. And I notice I didn't put a couple of things here that we need. So with your pencil, please include these. This is a 10 by 10 grid. So to draw this quickly and efficiently, I'd try to draw a big square, the best square I could. And then I used 5 rows here so that I could cut them in half quickly. And so that gave me my 10 rows. And then I went through and did my 10 columns. So it's a 10 by 10 column, and each box equals 1%. This is your last resort that you want to use just because it's cumbersome to draw all of this and it's really hard to fit the numbers in there. So you're hoping that you have some other amount to utilize, but if you had a situation that we were forced to use this, we could use this grid. Also, if you had no idea what grid to use, this is your go-to because we can find every single percent in here. We can find 20% by coloring these 2 columns. We could find 25% by coloring 2 columns and 5 more of another one. So if you were completely stuck and had no idea what to do, I would start with the hundreds grid here. So these are our models that are our go-tos that we need to be able to picture. And at first we will start by drawing all of them. Eventually we hope that they would be in your mind's eye and you can use them to just visualize the problem. But for the part that we're learning, we're going to use them so that we actually have a picture to manipulate and to work with. So the next thing we're going to do is you're going to get out this sheet here. And we're going to start on the side that says classwork. On the back is your homework. See how it says homework here? So this is your homework side. Don't do this until you get home. I want to see if you remember these models, how to use your resources in your math notebook once you get home and you didn't just hear about it from me. So make sure you're on the classwork side. And then we want to read the directions. It says classwork models for percentages. Draw a model for each percentage and shade in the amount that is written. For ones that require a hundreds grids, just do a rough sketch like the example. So I don't want you spending a million years trying to draw that hundreds grid. Just make it a rough sketch so that you have an idea. Okay, so if you need your math notebook next to you so that you can kind of see this and be able to reference it if you need to, you might have that out. What I want you to do is I want you to look at each percent and then draw the model for it. So for instance, if it was 30%, I would, did I do 30%? Am I giving you one away? Oh, good, I'm not. So for 30%, I notice that it ends in a 0. So that tells me that I need a 1 by 10 grid. So I would draw my tape diagram. I would divide it into 10 pieces. A really smart girl told me that if I draw just one less line than the amount of boxes I need, I'd get the right amount of boxes. So I draw 9 lines because I need 10 boxes, 9 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need one more line, so I just add on because I just didn't judge it correctly, and that's totally fine. And so now I know that these are each worth 10% because the entire thing is 100%. So if I 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100%. I only need 30% of the tape diagram, so I'm going to shade 30%. That is 30% of this tape diagram is shaded. What percent then is not shaded? Hopefully you said 75%. Nope, not 75, 70%. So that's the other thing in problem solving and things to think about. We have the section that is shaded and what that means. We also have the section that's not shaded and what that might mean in our problem. So now I want you to pause the video after I'm done with these instructions and try these on your own, and then come back and see if you have the same models and the same shadings that I do. If you don't, then think about what picture you used and why you used it, and fix them from there. So push pause, do the work, and then check back to see if you are correct. If you are checking back in at the video at this point, you have all of the models drawn and you are ready to check to see if you are correct. So for number 1, because it was 25%, you should have gone with a 4-block tape diagram and then colored 25% of the model, which would be this part. The other reason I like this is because hopefully you're getting experience at really visualizing 25%. That's less than half, it's almost none, it's not almost all. So again, you're seeing 25% is 1/4 of this tape diagram. 60%, originally I started to do it with my 10s, and then I realized, oh wait, that's a multiple of 20, so I didn't need these extra ones, so I kind of marked those off. And so 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, I needed the 5 grid. And then 60% would be 20, 40, 60. It would be 3 of them. So you can see it's more than half of it. It's not almost all, it's not almost none, but it's really close to being a half. 65%, I did need the 20 grid here, so I did my 2 tape diagrams and then cut them into 10 each. Then to quickly and efficiently draw this, I knew that the top was half of it, so that's 50%. So I quickly colored that in, and then I did 55, 60, 65. So this is 65% of this tape diagram. For 17%, I did a rough 10 by 10 grid, and then I needed a whole column here and then 7 individual ones. I can see that 17% is almost none of our grid. It's not close to half, and it's not close to all of it, so it's almost none. 90%, I used my 10 grid and colored almost all of them, because 90% means 9 out of the 10 pieces are colored in. So again, you see that visual 90%. That's good for a test because it means you got almost all of them right. 35% would be a 20-block grid. So again, I can see that it's less than half. It's not close to being none. It's close to being a half, but it's definitely less than a half. And I just knew what to color in because I did 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. It's okay if you colored this way too and did 10, 20, 30, 35. It doesn't matter as long as you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the boxes filled in. For 20%, I did my 5 grid, and then 20% is almost none. It's less than half, and it would be 1 piece. 15% is really almost none. I used my 20 grid here, 5, 10, 15, 3 pieces. Again, it doesn't matter how you colored them in, as long as it's 3 blocks that you colored in. 80% is the 5 block, 20, 40, 60, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. 20, 40, 60, 80 is the amount. It's almost all. It's kind of close to a half. It's kind of in between all and a half, and you can visualize that piece. And then 10% was my 10 grid. I only needed to color in 1. You can tell that's almost none. If you get 10% on a score, that means that that is bad. You only got this much out of your test correct, and you got most of it incorrect. Now, if you have to pay 10% of a bill, that would be good because you're only paying this tiny part of the entire bill. So that's a good thing, depending on the context. So hopefully you have some practice with these models here, and tonight on your homework it should look similar. And bring that, don't do the homework in class, bring this back to class tomorrow. If you have extra time in your day, you can go to Prodigy Game.